All right, here with Chad Reed at the Las Vegas AIM show, and we happen to be hanging out at the JGR Yoshimura Factory Suzuki rig, where you will be racing this weekend, right?
I will be. So I'm excited I'm excited actually, to be honest. You know, like it's been about a month and a half since I did the national at Ironman, and probably about 2 weeks, after the national. And it wasn't necessarily that I took time off. It just kind of like it was quiet. Those guys, like you're raring to go. I've had the summer off, but those guys are all excited to have some downtime, and they had the launch and doing things with their new 250. So I asked to come up, and basically one thing led to another, and I got to do some testing, and now I'm racing Monster Cup in Australia and New Zealand. So I'm excited.
So is this team supporting you in Australia, and if so, how? Do they send the bike down there for you?
Yeah, so I'll race this weekend on the Monster Cup, and then truck goes right away Sunday to Suzuki. They'll crate this bike. They'll crate it with parts, tires, all the normal stuff that you got to do when you're shipping. And obviously we're doing 2 races, so we'll need a couple of engines, and actually probably just one engine, but yeah, tires, parts, things like that, and they'll ship that down there. So for me, that takes the summer off. I feel like my off-season races are important. Like they're important to ride the real thing. Each gate drop is important for what you've missed during the summer. I'm kind of excited about where I'm at, and bike feels good, team feels good, and for me, it just, like, those commitments were already made for me. What the team's doing is basically just allowing me to be able to go do, put my best foot forward at my commitments that I have in the off season.
All right, so certainly you've had plenty of success on Yamahas, but when I think of Chad Reed on a Suzuki, I think of like happy Chad Reed who was really kicking ass. I mean, does it feel good to be back on this brand?
I really do like the brand. And what a lot of people probably don't know is, so I grew up, as an amateur, I grew up on Suzukis. So I don't know if it's just the fact, the simple fact that they have a badass bike. But every time I get on it, there's definitely things that feel home, like home for me. I hadn't rode one. Like I truly don't believe that I rode one since I left in 2009. And I actually, now that I think of it, maybe you posted it on your social when I was at the Fox Ride Day what's it called now? And I got on Ricky's bike, and so I was riding, and Ricky's like, "Hey, jump on this bike, try it out," and like it got the wheels turning. Like immediately I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's the feeling right there."
Yeah.
And it's nice. Like I'm always, for good or bad, I feel like I'm always a guy that goes off of feeling, like when it feels good, I feel that I can ride the bike the way that I, for the most part, it's always been in a competitive way. Like it just kind of like it got those wheels turning. I was already talking to J-Bone, or at least I'd reached out to J-Bone, and one thing led to another, and then he asked me to race a national, and I thought he was crazy, and I didn't want to really do it, but I ended up doing it. I had a blast, and like here we are.
Yeah. Okay, you said when you got on the Suzuki, certain things felt like home. So Suzuki is traditionally a very precise bike, the way it steers. Like when you rode on the Cowie, that's a rear wheel steering bike. I mean, is that type of handling what you feel most comfortable with?
It seems that way, because obviously, the Suzuki's I would confidently say it's easily the best turning bike in the class, and that seems to gel well with me, and combine that with years of experience in testing and a solid race team. I feel like the good things and the good vibes and that ultimate feeling that I need has been able to be provided. So that's kind of exciting, especially when you come off of a really challenging year, and then find that that comfort. That's been fun for me.
There was a video recently where you talked about, for the first time of the year in your career, you came into the 2018 series knowing you weren't going to be at your best, or I think you said suck even, but
yeah, knowing you're going to come into the year and actually suck isn't fun, you know. But like, you know, like I'd already committed to go racing. You know, like sponsors were cool and working with me. We were doing a VIP experience that was selling much quicker than I ever anticipated. So for me, it didn't, you know, it quickly, like reality is you knew, right? I mean, it's my 21st professional year, I think. So like when you're going into maybe 20 years, when you're going into year 20, you have a good idea or a good understanding of like what it takes to be competitive, what it takes to be like your best. And I knew that I wasn't even remotely close to that. Selfishly, and maybe, you know, I thought that it would come back quicker, and it didn't. You know, I started at Anaheim and thought, oh, you know, San Diego, once we start heading east, I'll be fine. And it never, even Vegas came and went, and I still wasn't 100%. So it was a really challenging year. So, yeah. But I guess what I took from it is more the fact that it wasn't about me and my performance for me. You know, of course, like my credentials alone put me in that caliber of people expect a lot, and I do too. But when the facts are facts, you can't go against it. So I was just really trying to embrace the fact that I was out there. I was going after a record of all-time supercrosses. I was trying to make every main event. I was trying to progress and get better each and every day and week, and that was what I was proud of.
Why did you choose the Husqvarna 450?
So I rode a Honda, and I really liked the Honda ergonomically. I started riding it on Supercross, and I started having, you know, a couple of issues where I was like, it needs to be better here, it needs to be better there, which is normal. I jumped on a KTM, and I liked it, but I didn't like the feel of it. Every time I rode it, it felt foreign, and that was strange to me. And then I forget why or how, but I ended up riding a Husky, and those similar KTM feelings were there, but the ergonomics of the bike were much, much nicer. Is that true? Am I not the only one that feels that? So it just, every time I got on, like I rode it twice, and the twice that I rode it, or 2 times that I rode it, it felt the same, and I didn't feel like it wasn't my bike. So then that was why I was like, okay, there's less things, and you know, like this was already October, I think. So you're pressing time, and so I'm kind of like basically trying to, which really, when you look at it, that's where I made probably the biggest mistake. Is like at that point you're already looking for shortcuts. Okay, this bike feels good, I could probably do this, and this to it, and it'll be okay. So I felt that the Husky was my best chance to go and be competitive, and it wasn't the bike. I mean, I really did like the Husky. I liked it a lot. I just never was in shape, and it was all me that I was never up to 100. I don't even think I made it to 80%. You know.
How is the ankle now? Are you fully able to do it?
I feel like my ankle is, like, riding wise, I feel like like I don't feel like it bothers me. Like I feel like I'm at, like if you're throwing crazy numbers, I feel like I'm at 95, 98%. I notice it more off the bike, you know, like I don't have my full 100% range of motion. I'd like to get that back. I'd like to get my hardware out, you know, but I would probably want to wait. Obviously, I'm at a year now. I would want to wait after a year, so maybe like next summer I can take my hardware out, if history repeats itself, every time I've gotten hardware out of my body, it always immediately feels better, and I get my range of motion back more. So I'm hoping that that's the case with my ankle. And some of the pain that I have post-riding or post-running training, I think is more hardware-related than actual structural problems. So, yeah, I feel like it's good, it's healthy. You know, like I'm able to do 95% of my normal stuff that I do.
I've never actually talked to you about this, but you know what you did on a Suzuki that you never done else? On anything else?
Backflip?
The backflip. So, dude, how did that even come about? What was the thought process? Were you scared? I mean, you stuck it, right? Your first try.
I didn't know. I did 5 of them. So, long story short, I was shooting for, I don't even know what it was back then. It wasn't Nitro Circus. It was something else. And we were shooting stuff, and they were like, literally, I was going through whoops, and they had, they were blowing them up, and I was going through berms, and anyway, they had this freestyle thing, and then they also had a big old mulch pit, or a mulch landing, and then the super kicker actually kicked up more, because Pastrana was doing, what was it, the TP 5 something, 6, I don't even know what it was back then, but that TP roll, I don't even know what it is. But so that jump was there, and I was looking at it, and we all got talking, and one of the guys did it, and I mean, he was this older guy, he's overweight, he's gonna hate me for that, I'm sorry, and he on some random trail bike KTM that he had, and he just does a flip, and I'm like, dude, quit being a pussy.
But was it even like in the plans to maybe do it, or did you just chose to do it?
Yeah, no, the jump was just randomly there, and I had always had a desire to do it. I always wanted to do it. I had flipped on a BMX bike before, never like on ground or resi or anything like that, always into a pit. So like rotating, I felt like I had a good feeling of rotating, a little bit at least, or at least witnessed it. And as a kid, I would always flip, and I did a lot of the gymnastic stuff and things like that in school. So, yeah, I guess I thought, yeah, I could do that. And then somebody comes and does it, and I'm like, oh shit, now I got to do it. So yeah, I hadn't done the jump, and I literally roll out first gear, and I'm just like, burp, 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 and I get upside down, and they're like, oh, you'll spot the landing, and when you spot the landing, you just start whatever. And I can honestly say I don't know that I seen landing, but I seen a gap of like I could get away from the bike and be okay, and I just launched and I jumped off. And I'm like, okay, now I got the feeling of the rotation. And then the next one, I pulled harder and I stayed on, and I over-rotated. And then I pulled a little less, still over-rotated. And then I think I did one that I literally, I was so slow, I was freaking out the whole time. I don't believe I've ever seen the landing, but I made it. I landed, and I'm like, that's it. I'm done. That box, my flipping future and is complete. So yeah, but it felt awesome to be able to do it. You always hear, oh, it's so easy and whatever, but man, it really is easy. But like having the balls to do it, slowing the rotation down, and I would assume that the ramp that I did it was probably in some ways easier but more challenging because it was so steep. I didn't know enough about that, and kind of frankly don't care about ever trying that again. So yeah, it was, I feel like no one prior or post me has ever done it as a champion, and I had a number 1 on my bike, and so I feel pretty good about it. Yeah.
I mean, there's legit freeride dudes that do everything, but then have them flipped.
But then there's a lot of guys that are not that amazing on motorcycles that can flip real easy too. So it really is. It's an amazing feeling. The 5 or 4 or 5 that I did, as far as everybody was like, yeah, you would just see the landing. The landing didn't really come. It never really happened that way for me. So maybe if you do it a bunch of times into the pit and you really get that feeling. But then you look at Josh Hill, and I'm like, it's not worth it for me.
That was the worst day of my life when you got hurt.
I bet.
Watching that. But all right, last question. Talk about your bike a little bit. I mean, the thing looks pretty badass.
Yeah.
Like
so what do you want me to talk about?
Like if you were to, well, you're obviously racing this weekend. The amount of time you have on it, testing for Supercross, are you 100% happy with it, or can it be developed more?
I think that there's probably only one thing that I would like to improve, and I think we're at a point. So like the good and bad thing about testing and riding and racing is you always have to start at a level and then it progresses from there, and then to really feel like where you're at, you have to go racing, you know, because it's one thing to ride a track where everybody, so if you're at Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, KTM, like if there's a weakness, everybody on that track and everybody on that bike typically has that same weakness. Mm-hmm. So then the track will develop a certain way. And so a lot of your issues or things that you need to work on or whatever, unfortunately show up, you know, and you've been around it long enough. How many times do you sit at Anaheim press conference and everyone's like, this is the newest team, it's the baddest bike, I'm in the best shape of my life, and they straight up suck ass at the first race. Oh, we weren't ready, we need to test. Okay, 24 hours before there was a very different conversation. Yeah. So I think that with experience, I would say that there's a few things that we need to work on, and I believe that how much we need to work on those and how much, like what I think and what is reality, will become more clear on Saturday night. So I come here feeling good. I feel confident. I'm having a great team with a great, I'm living in Charlotte, you know, like pretty much Monday through Fridays. I really, really enjoy riding for the team. Mm-hmm. So I think that, like, I think we're okay. Like, I don't think we're far off the mark. I think that there's things that will always show up that you're unaware of, and then I think that there'll be areas that we're really strong in. And I'm excited, truthfully, to get out and feel those, because this is always, you come here, it's $1 million. Yes, I want to win the $1 million. That's a given, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's a stepping stone. Yeah. Do I want to be my 100% right now, October 11th? Yeah. No, it's unsustainable. Yeah. So there's definitely a part of me that I'm good enough to come here and do what I want to do. I do want to compete for the wins and the podium and top fives, whatever that number is. That's, you know, like truthfully, I would like to be in that top five and with a chance of stepping on the podium. But if I was to fast forward the conversation to Sunday, I would say that my weekend, I want it to go good, I want it to go strong, I want to get good starts, and I want to figure out what I need to work on. And then that step will get made for Australia, and I'll come out swinging in Australia. So, yeah, that's normal for me. You know, off-season is always a stepping stone, with Anaheim one the priority, you know. I think that we see a lot of people be very, very competitive in the off season, and then they start to taper off of the wrong direction come Anaheim. So Anaheim's my goal, though I don't have a contract yet, but we're working on it. Everybody's seemingly on the same page. We all want to make it work. So, but I'm excited to be back on a Suzuki, and this has a very 09/22 Motorsports feel to it. This team is really got that vibe. So like I feel like I'm at my best as an individual here on this team.
Cool. Well, I'm hoping, as I'm sure everyone else watching is, that things work out and we get to see you under this tent for the rest of for 19.
Thanks.